Greetings, good evening. My name is Hermenegildo Santiago, and welcome to our series of webinars that we've been doing as a part of our coronavirus initiative for the United States of America. So good evening to all of you who are watching. We're going to be considering the topic of the unique opportunities of colleges and universities, or American colleges and universities. So let's just kind of jump right into that topic and share my screen here. Right. So the unique opportunities of colleges and universities in the United States, or American colleges and universities. I just wanted to share a little bit about myself before we kind of delve into the content information here. So I'm the Vice President of Client Relations at University Consultants of America. And my background, I attended Yale University as an undergrad, and then I did my master's at Harvard and also did coursework where I got a business certificate at the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley. So I have experience going to competitive colleges and universities, and I have a good knowledge of the landscape of higher education, having worked in public education and also in higher education organizations. So the topic overview for today is that there's a variety of colleges and universities in the United States of America. There are different structures to those colleges and universities academically. And then there is also different environmental factors that we should consider as we think about different colleges and universities. There are also cultural issues, as well as each college and university has its own culture. And then we think about the aspect of outcomes for colleges and universities as students graduate, the opportunities that they have during their college experience, and then post-college experience. And then we'll give you some takeaways so that you can really kind of have something to hold on to at the end of this presentation. So when you think of colleges and universities in the United States, you tend to think about probably the main contenders. Many people have these schools in mind, and maybe you can see which ones they are from the crests here. And it's Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Johns Hopkins, Northwestern. They're basically the top 10. So many people think about these when they're thinking of colleges and universities. However, there's a gamut of colleges and universities that we need to think about in the United States of high quality and sort of different experiences. So we need to kind of break through and think about other types of colleges and universities. So as a mode of a question, did you know? So did you know that there are thousands of not-for-profit schools in the United States, and there's about 399 national universities? As you can see here, the numbers: 605 regional universities, 223 small liberal arts colleges. And these numbers are taken from US News and World Report. So that's taken from that report. So UCA has kind of scoured the landscape. All of us have come together to look at different schools. And in fact, today we were looking at different schools because we like to think about our students. We like to think about fit. We like to think about more options for students, more quality options. And right now we have hovering about 300 types of schools or colleges and universities that we consider, and that, depending on the student's need, could be a very good fit for them. So what does this mean for you? Because this is why you're watching this webinar. So this means that there's going to be a wider array of colleges and universities. There's going to be a greater amount of experiences, right? And then there's going to be a better fit for you as a student, and even for the families themselves, right? And then there's cost opportunities for parents as they think about which college should my student go to, how much is it going to cost, should they go to a state school, should they go to a national university, should they go to a liberal arts college, should they apply there, and just thinking about the cost benefit sort of analysis of it. So if we start thinking about the differences that exist in colleges and universities, we can think about different types of academic calendars. So not all colleges and universities not all of them are on one calendar, right? So there are semesters, right, what we normally think about. And then there are trimesters, and there are also quarter systems, and there's also other systems that exist at other schools. So you need to be aware of that so that you know what's going to be a good fit for you at the end of the day, and to know how many classes you're going to be taking in a semester, given if it's or however it is, if it's a trimester or a quarter or a semester, how many classes you're taking, because if you're taking less classes, they may be more intense. If you're taking more classes, they may have a different intensity. So just another thing to take into consideration, that they all differ in terms of calendars. Course offerings can also differ from colleges and universities. Some colleges are small liberal arts colleges, therefore they'll be offering a very good undergraduate experience, many undergraduate classes. However, some colleges and universities have graduate schools, so the reach kind of expands a bit, and there are more offerings in terms of, so there are more offerings for students with graduate classes being offered. Furthermore, if you think about Boston, Boston is, for example, a city that has many colleges and universities. You can think of Tufts, you can think of BU, you can think of Suffolk, you can think about Harvard, MIT, right? Many of these schools have agreements with one another, and you can do what is called cross-registration, where you take classes at one school or the other. So just because a class isn't offered at BU doesn't mean that you can't take it at Tufts if they have that agreement with that school. And then there's also dual degrees, that you can also do an undergraduate degree and then a graduate degree. So there's more of a range of opportunities, and there's that difference in course offerings. All colleges and universities are not going to offer the same types of experiences. So, for example, if you attend NYU, at NYU, you can likely take, for example, a city semester, and so you don't have to stay in New York. You could possibly go to Los Angeles. Maybe they have, as a hypothetical, they may have an agreement with UCLA, for example, where you can take classes for a semester in LA and have an experience in LA. Other schools have programs such as Semester at Sea. One of my friends did this. She was not a science major. She was a humanities major, and actually did a semester at sea. It was very sciencey, but she also took other classes such as writing, but they were related in sort of their scope or the theme that they had for that semester at sea, and she saw many cities during her travels at sea. Furthermore, you can also do, other colleges and universities have robust study abroad opportunities. One of my friends at Yale did Yale in London, so she studied in Yale in London, and then after that she did another program through NYU actually, where she studied in Italy. So she did 2 semesters, one in London and one in Italy, one through Yale, one through another school. So there are these agreements that do exist that can give you the opportunities that you want that aren't necessarily only at your school, right? Some other schools are known very much for a different type of experience, such as Northeastern is known for their co-op experience. So they provide internship opportunities for their students throughout the year, and they can intern, for example, at companies in Boston. One of my coworkers their son was at Northeastern, and then at Northeastern, they also did the summer experiences at Boeing, because he was doing an engineering degree, and then subsequently he was also he was electrical, but so he had various kind of engineering experiences and also kind of computer science. So he also did experience at Microsoft. So that's a different type of experience that's offered through Northeastern, and other schools offer co-op experiences as well. So every school is not going to have the same curriculum. So this is basically what's required by the school for you to take during your 4 years, right? Some schools will be very liberal, such as Brown, which has an open curriculum. They want their students to really embrace their studying and their sort of their experiences at Brown, their 4-year experience at Brown, and they can take the gamut of courses and they let the students determine whatever courses they want to take. On the other hand, if you know that you're the type of student who needs structure, there may be schools such as Columbia and University of Chicago where they have a very structured approach to their curriculum, right? They have a core curriculum. All students at Chicago, all students at Columbia have to take this core curriculum. And if you speak to students at Columbia, they'll be like, yes, I went through that. So there's this sort of camaraderie through this core curriculum that they have, this experience, this shared experience of what Columbia means through that core curriculum. I went to Yale. We had distributional requirements. So we had 4 distributional areas, right? Arts. We had science, math, English language arts and humanities. And then there was languages, and then there were the arts, basically. So 4 distributional areas in some cases, right? So there are different types of curriculums is sort of the point, and you really want to make sure that you know where you're applying, why you're applying, and what you're getting into, so that you are not caught by surprise. A lot of students that we have really kind of stress out about sort of their major. What if I don't know what I'm doing right now? What if I don't know what my game plan is? When do I declare a major? I have to declare a major now. Many questions kind of come up through the woodwork, right? And in some cases, you may have to declare a major early on, depending on whether you're applying to a specific school, right? If you're engineering and there's an engineering school and there's a specific engineering program, you may have to declare what your engineering major is. At other schools, they may be asking you early on for what your major possibly is, because they want to know the numbers. They want to know how many students they can project in certain majors so that they're prepared as a university to be able to support those students. However, in other cases, you would have to, declare a major after your first year or your second year. For example, if you're pre-med, you probably want to declare your major early on. If there's such a pre-med major, there is a pre-med track, right? And when you declare that early on, then you're more prepared to sort of like take care of all the coursework that you need to take for your pre-medical track. Now, do college environments matter? Some students come to us saying, I don't really have a preference as to what school. I'm really open to all kinds of schools. But if we look at this picture right here, for example, we can see the University of California at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and then we can also see Stanford University, both in the Bay Area, right? One in Palo Alto, one across the bay from San Francisco and Berkeley. So there are different environments, 30,000 students versus 6,000 students, different environments, different types of experiences. So if you know that you're a highly independent person, you don't really need too many, you don't need individualized attention, maybe you're fine at Berkeley. Whereas we've had students that have gone to Berkeley. It's a wonderful school, they're excited about it, and then they feel lost in the mix because they were not ready for sort of the volume of students that were there, right? And other students I know flourish at Berkeley and they love it. So it just depends on your personality and that fit. So thinking about college environments is also very important towards your outcomes and your happiness overall. Another unique aspect of colleges and universities in the United States, since we have a huge range of colleges and universities, are whether those will be sort of in urban environments or whether those will be in suburban environments or whether those will be sort of in college towns, right? So if we think of Boston University, it's in the landscape, it's right in the middle of sort of it's in Boston, right? So I mean, there's the accessibility. It's in the fabric of the city, right? There's accessibility to the T that you take to the university and that you can take into the city of Boston themselves. Whereas if you think about Princeton, it's really a college town in New Jersey, right outside of the capital. It's a very different feel. Now, if you think about Pomona in California, that's also a different feel, a little bit much more suburban. It has its own little campus. It's a smaller scope. So really understanding the uniqueness of college environments is also very important so that you can make sure that you are happy where you are. Another aspect that many students underestimate is culture, right? Culture, what is culture, right? It seems like this fluffy thing that many people don't really think about too much. However, everybody needs to socialize, right? You can be an introvert and maybe you're in the library 24/7, but you do need to go out and see people. And if you know, for example, that you're an introvert, but you don't like football, maybe you shouldn't go to a school where the culture is predominantly football oriented, because that's what you're going to encounter, right? If you go to University of Michigan, a lot of schools that are big on football will have this aspect of football, everything revolving around football, right? Activities revolving around football, social life revolving around football. So have that in mind. Meanwhile, there are schools where social life revolves around Greek culture, right? Sort of this sorority culture, fraternity culture, some more than others, right? The University of Florida, I've heard that in order to find sort of the support group that you want, because it is a larger school, great school, good experience, great academics. However, it is a larger school, and you might feel a little lost if you don't have that sort of social group that you need. So Greek culture at that type of school provides sort of a safety net, a support system where you can find friends and people who are like-minded. Other schools have it a little bit more informally, such as USC. Part of the social life is Greek culture, but there are a lot of other things happening in LA and at the school at USC that do not revolve around Greek culture per se, or sororities and fraternities. There are also little quirks at universities in terms of culture. At MIT, they're very intense, very much about their studies, but in order to let off steam, they do pranks, right? They do these things such as you can see here, on top of one of the MIT buildings, someone put a truck, right? So they're kind of this prankish culture. Know that about them, the little quirks that make MIT students different, and so you know what that fit is for you. At Yale and other Ivy League schools and even smaller liberal arts colleges, one of the big things is singing groups, right? So that you rush a singing group, and that becomes sort of part of your social life. Another thing about Yale and other schools is that they have secret societies where students are kind of tapped into that secret society, and that becomes part of the cultural experience at Yale. So now we go to sort of the college experience and how it relates to a little bit more about jobs and outcomes during and post, right? Northeastern, as we mentioned, they've really branded themselves for this co-op experience, right? So during the school year, students work or intern at companies in Boston or close to Boston, where they can get internships in marketing, internships in business, internships in engineering. They're very good about creating those types of internship experiences. They also have summer experiences where you can go to other cities, and they have these agreements with companies such as Microsoft, where you can intern at an organization or a company. And then postgraduate, you can likely, because you've interned there, have a better chance of obtaining a full-time opportunity. At other schools such as Harvard or Princeton, Cornell, Brown, they really have strong alumni associations. So the smaller school systems, but stronger alumni associations. So those alums usually go back to campus when they have their own organizations and work for certain companies, and they recruit from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cornell, all of those types of schools, UPenn, and they recruit the students that they have a similar background that they can relate to. So the Alumni Association becomes sort of this backbone for opportunities for internships and also for opportunities for job opportunities after the undergraduate experience. Another aspect that is kind of key in sort of outcomes, we have an example here of the University of Washington. It's a great school, it's a larger school, good reputation, but not always on everybody's radar, right? If you're from Washington, you most likely have it on your radar. However, in this case, it's all about location, right? University of Washington is in Seattle. Seattle is the home of many companies, for example, Boeing and Microsoft. And as a result, University of Washington has agreements and has basically these funnels, these talent pipelines to companies such as Microsoft and Boeing, and that becomes sort of the funnel for having internships and having post undergrad experiences and full-time job experiences. So just sort of overall, right, the American college experience and the uniqueness of it is that it's not only about academics, it's about social life, it's about sports, it's about music, it's about food, right? If you go to Vanderbilt, for example, it's Nashville, it's all about music, but it's a beautiful place. It's a very different experience than going to a University of Chicago, where it's also beautiful, but it's in a major city and it's colder, right? So think about all these different aspects in terms of the overall sort of four-year experience at a college and university in the United States, right? It is much more than academics. It is all of these things that we've kind of mentioned in here and more. So what are the takeaways, right? What are the takeaways that we have? What are the lessons learned, the strategies that we can take away from this presentation? Although this presentation was kind of at a high level, some examples were given, right? So first of all, right, number one, do not limit yourself to top or brand name schools, right? It's great that you want to go to Yale, or it's great to want to aspire to go to Harvard, but not everybody is meant for Yale or Harvard or to go to top name schools, right? It's not always the best fit, and it's not always where you're going to be happiest, even if you got in, right? So do not limit yourself is the point. Do not limit yourself to top name schools, right? There are many schools that offer great experiences as an undergrad and that you can have great outcomes at, right? Be open. So number two, be open to schools that nobody knows. What about the University of Washington? What about Grinnell in the Midwest, right? About Duquesne in Pennsylvania. So there are a lot of schools that many people don't necessarily know, but that offer good experiences for their students, and you can possibly be happier there. So the third point is to research intelligently. Research schools, know what they're about, know what their culture is, know about their curriculum, know about their calendar systems, right? And then have it in mind that there are different academic experiences every single school. And the big takeaway is find a school where you're going to be happy, right? You need a good fit. You need not only to have a good experience, a good quality experience, but also have a school where it's going to be a fit for you, for your family. And at the end of the day, you see yourself there, you thrive there, it supports you, it supports the outcomes that you have, and you will be happy, right? Happiness is not underrated, right? Not everyone who goes to USC is happy. Not everyone, as we said in this example, per se, going to Berkeley would be happy, right? They may be happier somewhere else. So know the type of student that you are and know what that fit is so that you find a place where you fit in and where you are happiest at. And then the admissions process is the last point, right? The last point that we have is that the admissions process is really about collecting options. We work heavily with students to sort of build a list of schools, right? Target, safety, and also reach schools, right? So that at the end of the day, you have a kind of this cross section of schools that you can really say, if I applied to, let's say, for example, 6 or 7 schools as an example, and I got into 5 or I got into 4, but you have 4 different viable options, right? That you can think about and that you have you're collecting these options. There could be many more options depending on how many schools you apply to, but that's an example. So having as many viable options for you so that you have the best outcomes possible is the point or the takeaway for much of this discussion. So that is the discussion for today. We hope that you got a lot out of this webinar. Next week, we will be talking about the personal statement, right? Some myths, some truths, and some strategies around that personal statement, and making the most of that opportunity to shine. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to supporting you and your family in this trajectory. Take care.